Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nathan and on this video I'll be predicting the NBA season. Before we get into today's video, please smash that subscribe button and also turn on that notification bell if you're new to my channel. Odds are if you're watching this video, you really love sports, and also drop a like on this video. This season, the NBA will have two regular season games played in Mexico City and Paris, France. So here are my Eastern Conference standing predictions. The Indiana Pacers, 23-59. The Indiana Pacers had a horrible season last year by having their third worst season in franchise history. They have accurately missed the playoffs for two consecutive seasons in a row after making the postseason for the previous 5 seasons. Their record last season was 25 wins to 57 losses, and they finished as the 13th place team in the Eastern Conference. That was also their second straight campaign with a losing record. In the new season, I suspect that the Indiana Pacers will be the worst team in the Eastern Conference, but they won't be the worst team in the league. The Orlando Magic, 26-56. The Orlando Magic had a horrible season last year by being the second worst team in the league. Last season, their record was 22 wins and 60 losses, and they finished as the worst team in the Eastern Conference. Their last playoff appearance came in the 2019-2020 campaign, and their last winning season came in the 2018-2019 campaign. The team has enough intriguing and improving young talent to avoid not being the worst team in the Eastern Conference. By all means, I suspect the Orlando Magic will be a little bit better of a team this season, but they will have their third consecutive losing season in a row. The Detroit Pistons, 28-54. The Detroit Pistons had a bad season last year by being the third worst team in the league. They are currently in rebuilding mode that started back in the 2020-2021 campaign. Last season, their record was 23 wins and 59 losses, and they missed the playoffs for the third consecutive season in a row. The talent on the roster should be more improved, and the squad could be more capable of at least keeping games more competitive. So my prediction is that the Detroit Pistons won't be a playoff team this year, but in my opinion, I believe they are heading in the right direction this year. The Charlotte Hornets, 35-47. The Charlotte Hornets had their best season since the 2015-2016 campaign, and that was their first winning season since then. Last season, their record was 43 wins and 39 losses, and they finished as the 10th place team in the Eastern Conference. The Hornets have missed the postseason for 6 straight seasons in a row, and their last playoff appearance came in the 2015-2016 campaign. They did make the play-in tournament as the 10th seed last season, and they lost in their first game against the Atlanta Hawks. By all means, I think that the Charlotte Hornets will take a step back this season, but they could possibly make the play-in tournament this year. The New York Knicks, 37-45. The New York Knicks had a disappointing season last year by missing the playoffs after making it the year before. After they had a breakthrough season in the 2020-2021 campaign, they were the 4th seed and they had the 4th ranked defense in the league. Unfortunately for them, they took a big step backwards last season. Their offensive upgrades didn't pan out, and their defense fell out of the top 10 as they finished 6 games out of the play-in tournament. Last season, their record was 37 wins and 45 losses, and they finished as the 11th place team in the Eastern Conference. So in the new season, I suspect that they won't be much better than last year, but they could potentially make the play-in tournament this year. The Washington Wizards, 40-42. The Washington Wizards didn't have a good season last year by missing the playoffs after making it the year before. Last season, their record was 35 wins and 47 losses, and they finished as the 12th place team in the Eastern Conference. The Wizards were 10-3 with the Leeds 4th ranked defense on November 16th of 2021. But the bottom fell out after that as they won just 25 of their final 69 games. They finished 8 games out of the play-in tournament in the Eastern Conference, and they finished 25th in defensive efficiency. They have currently missed the playoffs in 3 out of the last 4 seasons. And when they did make it in 2021, they lost to the 76ers in 5 games in the first round. The team's 2 highest paid players didn't play a single minute together last year. So my prediction is that they will be a better team this season, and they could make the play-in tournament this year. The Chicago Bulls, 43-39. The Chicago Bulls had a wonderful season last year by returning to the playoffs for the first time since the 2016-2017 campaign. In the playoffs last season, they played against Milwaukee in the first round. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 5 games. Last season, their record was 46 wins and 36 losses, and they finished as the 6th place team in the Eastern Conference. Chicago was 27-13 in mid-January when Ball went out with seemingly a minor knee injury, and then they went 19-23 from there, sliding from first to 6th as he underwent surgery. The team went 1-14 against the Eastern Conference top 4 teams last year. By all means, I think that the Chicago Bulls will be a good team this season and will compete for a playoff spot all season long. The Atlanta Hawks, 44-38. The Atlanta Hawks had a good season last year by making the playoffs for the 2nd straight season in a row, but at the same time it was a disappointing season. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Miami Heat in the first round. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 5 games. Last season, their record was 43 wins and 39 losses, and they finished as the 8th place team in the Eastern Conference. Their fans were undoubtedly disappointed by last season's 8th place finish in their first round playoff exit, and that's because the team reached the Eastern Conference Finals in the 2020-2021 campaign. The front office clearly felt that an overhaul was in order. As a result, Atlanta now has 2 All-Stars in its backcourt, but had to sacrifice depth and other assets in the process. So I believe that the Atlanta Hawks will have a good season this year and should be a playoff contender all season long. The Brooklyn Nets, 45-37. The Brooklyn Nets had a really disappointing season last year even though they made the playoffs. Last season, with 3 of the best offensive players this league has ever seen, the Brooklyn Nets were the favorites to win the NBA championship. Since they were the favorites to win it all last year, Kyrie Irving missed 53 games. Joe Harris was lost 14 games into the season. James Harden forced his way out. Ben Simmons arrived and never played. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Boston Celtics in the first round. Unfortunately for them, they got swept in that series. Their record in the regular season was 44 wins and 38 losses, and they finished as the 7th place team in the Eastern Conference. After all that happened, on June 30th of 2022, it was reported that Kevin Durant asked for a trade. But on August 24th of 2022, he canceled his trade request after meeting with the team's management. So I suspect that they will have a better season this year, and with the roster they have, I believe they could win their first NBA Finals championship if everything goes right this year. The Toronto Raptors, 47-35. The Toronto Raptors had a bounce-back season last year by making the playoffs after missing it the season before. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 6 games. Last season, their record was 48 wins and 34 losses, and they finished as the 5th place team in the Eastern Conference. The Raptors' defense has proven to be reliable, ranking in the top 10 in 4 of the last 5 seasons, with the only exception being the year they're in Tampa Bay. Their offense, on the other hand, was decent last year even though they were one of the worst shooting teams in the league. They made up for their bad shooting by taking care of the ball and crashing the glass, averaging 7 more shooting opportunities than their opponents. If the team can shoot better next season, they can take a step forward overall. So I absolutely believe that the Toronto Raptors will have another good season this year by making the playoffs again for the 8th time in 9 seasons. The Cleveland Cavaliers, 48-34. The Cleveland Cavaliers had an unexpected wonderful season last year by having their first winning season since LeBron James left back in the 2017-2018 campaign. They didn't make the playoffs last year, and they have missed the postseason for 4 consecutive seasons in a row. Last season, their record was 44 wins and 38 losses, and they finished as the 9th place team in the Eastern Conference. They doubled their victory total from the previous season, leaping from 22nd to 44th. Unfortunately, injuries and other struggles let the air out of their year, with a 9-17 regular season finish followed by back-to-back losses in the play-in tournament to Brooklyn and Atlanta. On September 1st of 2022, Cleveland got Donovan Mitchell in a trade with the Utah Jazz. So I believe that the Cleveland Cavaliers will have their best season since LeBron James left them and will make a playoff spot this year. The Miami Heat, 50-32. The Miami Heat had their best season last year in terms of winning percentage since the 2013-2014 campaign. They have currently made the playoffs for 3 straight seasons in a row. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 7 games. Last season, their record was 53 wins and 29 losses, and they finished as the best team in the Eastern Conference. Miami was excellent, leading the league in 3-point accuracy last season at 37.9%, and they ranked 4th in defensive rating at 108.4. So my prediction is that the Miami Heat will have another fantastic season this year, and they will be a finals contender in the new season. The Philadelphia 76ers, 52-30. The Philadelphia 76ers had a great season last year by making the playoffs for a 5th consecutive season in a row. But at the same time, it was also a disappointing season. That's because in the playoffs last season, they played against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 6 games. In the 5 straight playoff appearances, they have made the Eastern Conference semifinals in 4 of the 5 postseason appearances. And they haven't got past that round yet, and that has become a pattern for them. Last season, their record was 51 wins and 31 losses, and they finished as the 4th place team in the Eastern Conference. The 76ers could have a top 5 offense for the first time in 32 years, and they could rack up a ton of regular season wins this year. So I believe that the Philadelphia 76ers will have another fantastic season this year and will be a finals contender in the new season. The Milwaukee Bucks, 54-28. Milwaukee was a really great team last year, even though they didn't make the NBA Finals or win a 2nd straight NBA championship. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals and they played against the Boston Celtics. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 7 games. That was their 6th consecutive playoff appearance in a row, and they have won 1 NBA Finals championship in the 2020-2021 campaign. Last season, their record was 51 wins and 31 losses, and they finished as the 3rd best team in the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee has a really good roster, and they have the best player in the new season in the Greek Freak. So my prediction is that Milwaukee will be a threat to win their 2nd NBA Finals championship in 3 seasons. The Boston Celtics, 56-26. The Boston Celtics had a wonderful season last year by making their first NBA Finals appearance since the 2009-2010 campaign. In the NBA Finals last season, they played against the Golden State Warriors. Unfortunately for them, they lost the NBA Finals in 6 games. Last season, their record was 51 wins and 31 losses, and they finished as the 2nd best team in the Eastern Conference. Boston has currently made 8 straight playoff appearances in a row, and since the beginning of the 21st century, they have made 18 postseason appearances, with 3 NBA Finals appearances and winning one of those appearances in the 2007-2008 campaign. The Celtics have a good roster, and they have a top 10 athlete in Jason Tatum. So I absolutely think that the Boston Celtics will have a better season this year as the best team in the Eastern Conference and will be a NBA Finals contender all season long. So that's my Eastern Conference standing predictions for the season. Here are my Western Conference standing predictions. The Oklahoma City Thunder, 20-62. The Oklahoma City Thunder had a horrible season last year by having their 2nd worst season in franchise history since they became the Oklahoma City Thunder in the 2008-2009 campaign. Last season, their record was 24 wins and 58 losses, and they finished as the 4th worst team in the league. They are currently in rebuilding mode, and that started in the 2020-2021 campaign. The Thunder have missed the playoffs in back-to-back seasons for the first time in franchise history since they became the Oklahoma City Thunder in the 2008-2009 campaign. By all means, I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder won't be that good of a team this season, and I believe they are going to be the worst team in the league in the new season. The Houston Rockets, 21-61. The Houston Rockets have had back-to-back horrible seasons, and last season was their 4th worst season in franchise history. Last season, their record was 20 wins and 62 losses, and they finished as the worst team in the league. Houston is currently in rebuilding mode that started in the 2020-2021 campaign. Their last winning record and playoff appearance came in the 2019-2020 season. With the Rockets' rebuilding project continuing into this season, we will see once again that Houston will rely heavily on its young core. But unlike last season, their emerging young roster may actually be more competitive in the new season. So I believe that the Houston Rockets won't be the worst team in the NBA this season. Their young core will make encouraging progress this year. The San Antonio Spurs, 23-59. The San Antonio Spurs didn't have a good season last year, and that was their worst season in terms of winning percentage since the 1996-1997 campaign. That was also Greg Popovich's first season as the head coach. He's considered one of the best NBA coaches of all time. The Spurs missed the playoffs last year for the third consecutive season in a row after making the playoffs every year since the 1997-1998 season. Last season, their record was 34 wins and 48 losses, and they finished as the 10th place team in the Western Conference. They did make a play-in tournament, and they lost in the opening game to New Orleans. The organization spent the offseason diving deep into the waters of a complete rebuild for the new season. So my prediction is that the San Antonio Spurs won't be that good of a team this year in their first year of rebuilding mode. The Utah Jazz, 29-53. The Utah Jazz had a good season last year by making the playoffs for the sixth consecutive season in a row. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Dallas Mavericks in the first round. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 6 games. Last season, their record was 49 wins and 33 losses, and they finished as the 5th place team in the Western Conference. In the offseason, their head coach stepped down after 8 seasons that entailed 3 playoff exits, both in the first and second rounds. And then the Utah Jazz general manager began the process of tearing down the franchise's foundation entirely. The Jazz parted ways with their 2 franchise cornerstones of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. They traded Rudy Gobert to Minnesota and then Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland. So now in the new season, I absolutely think that the Utah Jazz won't be that good of a team in their first year of rebuilding mode. The Sacramento Kings, 36-46. The Sacramento Kings now officially on the longest active postseason drought in the 4 major North American sports after the Seattle Mariners made the playoffs in the 2022 MLB season for the first time since 2001. Since 2006, the Kings have had 16 consecutive losing seasons, and that's the most in NBA history. Their last playoff appearance came in the 2005-2006 campaign. Last season, their record was 30 wins and 52 losses, and they finished as the 12th place team in the Western Conference. The team has the right ingredients with a handful of talented young players, a proven all-star, and a successful coach. But few franchises transform their identity in one season. So I believe that the Sacramento Kings will be a better team this season and could potentially make the play-in tournament this year. The Portland Trail Blazers, 39-43. The Portland Trail Blazers had a disappointing season last year by missing the playoffs for the first time since the 2012-2013 campaign. Until last season, they made 8 consecutive playoff appearances in a row. Last season, their record was 27 wins and 55 losses, and they finished as a 13th place team in the Western Conference. Portland hasn't had back-to-back losing seasons in a row since the 2011-2012 and 2012-2013 campaigns. By all means, I believe that the Portland Trail Blazers will have a bounce-back season this year, and maybe they could make a playoff appearance if a lot of things go their way in the new season. The Los Angeles Lakers, 43-39. The Los Angeles Lakers had a really disappointing season last year by finishing with a losing record with LeBron James on the team. In LeBron James' career, he has been on 4 non-playoff teams, and the most recent one other than last season was back in the 2018-2019 campaign. Last season, their record was 33 wins and 49 losses, and they finished as the 11th place team in the Western Conference. The Lakers fired their head coach Frank only 2 seasons after he helped them win an NBA championship in the 2019-2020 season. Then the Lakers hired Darvin Ham, who had earned strong respect as a former dependable NBA role player and for his multiple gigs as an assistant coach. So I believe that the Lakers are going to have a bounce-back season this year and will be a playoff contender in the new season. The New Orleans Pelicans, 44-38. The New Orleans Pelicans had a good season last year by making the playoffs, even though they had a losing record in the season. That was their first playoff appearance since the 2017-2018 campaign. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Phoenix Suns in the first round. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 6 games. Last season, their record was 36 wins and 46 losses, and they finished as the 8th place team in the Western Conference. The biggest question is by far the health of Zion Williamson, who has played 85 of a possible 226 contests over his 3 seasons. Now he works with a trainer and a chef to keep him lean, so that his rare explosiveness doesn't inflict too much wear and tear on his body. So I believe that the Pelicans will have a lot better season this year, and they could make a playoff appearance if he stays healthy all season long. The Minnesota Timberwolves, 48-34. The Minnesota Timberwolves had a fantastic season last year by making the playoffs for the first time since the 2017-2018 campaign. That was also the first winning season since the 2017-2018 season. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 6 games. Minnesota hasn't made back-to-back playoff appearances in a row since the early 2000s. Last season, their record was 46 wins and 36 losses, and they finished as the 7th place team in the Western Conference. In the offseason, they got Rudy Gobert in a trade with the Utah Jazz. So my prediction is that the Minnesota Timberwolves will have a great season this year and will make the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. The Dallas Mavericks, 49-33. The Dallas Mavericks had a wonderful season last year by having their best season since the 2014-2015 campaign. Dallas has currently made the playoffs for 3 straight seasons in a row after missing the postseason for 3 consecutive seasons in a row from 2016-2017 to the 2018-2019 campaigns. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the Western Conference Finals and they played against the Golden State Warriors. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 5 games. Last season, their record was 52 wins and 30 losses, and they finished as a 4th place team in the Western Conference. Dallas has one of the best players in the NBA this season named Luka Doncic. So in the new season, my prediction is that the Dallas Mavericks will be a playoff contender this season, and they could have a deep postseason run this year. The Memphis Grizzlies, 50-32. The Memphis Grizzlies had a wonderful season last year by tying their best season in franchise history. The last time they had such a season like this was in the 2012-2013 campaign. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Golden State Warriors in the conference semifinals. Unfortunately for them, they lost that series in 6 games. They have currently made the playoffs for 2 consecutive seasons in a row. Last season, their record was 56 wins and 26 losses, and they finished as the 2nd best team in the Western Conference. Memphis has one of the best players in the league named Ja Morant. By all means, I think that the Memphis Grizzlies will have another fantastic season this year, and in my opinion, I think they are NBA Finals contenders. The Phoenix Suns, 52-30. The Phoenix Suns had a glorious season last year by having their best season in franchise history, but at the same time it was a disappointment. Their previous best season in franchise history was in the 2004-2005 and the 1992-1993 campaigns. The reason why it was a disappointing season last year was because in the playoffs they played against the Dallas Mavericks in the conference semifinals, but unfortunately for them they lost that series in 7 games. Phoenix has currently made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons in a row. Last season, their record was 64 wins and 18 losses, and they finished as the best team in the league. The team does have one of the top NBA players named Devin Booker, so I suspect that the Phoenix Suns won't be as good as last season, but I have them being a NBA Finals contenders in the new season. The Denver Nuggets, 53-29. The Denver Nuggets had a good season last year, but at the same time it was a disappointment. That's because in the playoffs they played against the Golden State Warriors in the first round, but unfortunately for them they lost that series in 5 games. The team has currently made the playoffs for 4 consecutive seasons in a row. Last season their record was 48 wins and 34 losses, and they finished as a 6th place team in the Western Conference. Denver does have one of the top 3 NBA players named Nikola Jokic. So my prediction is that the Denver Nuggets will have a fantastic season this year, and they are NBA Finals contenders in the new campaign. The Los Angeles Clippers, 54-28. The Los Angeles Clippers had a disappointing season last year by missing the playoffs for the first time since the 2017-2018 campaign. Last season, their record was 42 wins and 40 losses, and they finished as the 9th place team in the Western Conference. They did make the play-in tournament as the 8th seed last season, but they lost both games to Minnesota and New Orleans. Los Angeles has a really great roster this season, and they have some of the best players in the NBA. So I believe that the Los Angeles Clippers are a really dangerous team in the new season, and they could possibly win the NBA Finals this year. The Golden State Warriors, 57-25. The Golden State Warriors had a wonderful season last year by winning the NBA Finals. In the NBA Finals last season, they played against the Boston Celtics. They won that series in 6 games. The Warriors last season stamped themselves as the league's premier franchise of the last 10 years by winning a 4th title in the Stephen Curry era. That was also the first playoff and finals appearance since the 2018-2019 campaign. Last season, their record was 53 wins and 29 losses, and they finished as the 3rd best team in the Western Conference. They do have one of the best NBA players of all time, naming Stephen Curry. So my prediction is that the Golden State Warriors will have another fantastic season this year, and they could win a 2nd straight NBA Finals championship in the new season. So that's my Western Conference standing predictions for the season. So those are my predictions for the NBA this season. Which team do you guys think will be the best team in the league this year? Let me know in the comments down below. Before you leave, please smash that subscribe button and also turn on that notification bell if you're new to my channel. And if you love sports, this is definitely the channel for you, and also drop a like on this video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Nathan, and I'll see you guys all in my next video. Just keep loving sports.